think the way we consume education has changed. But we also talked about how you yourself as a successful entrepreneur.
Successful is...
So you're successful. Hey, you live in Spain,
yeah.
right? You're already richer than most of the world just by the fact you live in Spain.
Maybe.
Because put things in perspective, how people in the second third world countries, they live, how they survive on subsistence.
I would prefer to be homeless here than living in Israel.
There you go. So the education definitely has changed. You can go to ChatGPT and it does the homework for you.
Yeah.
There's so many different ways of consuming information. The way we consume it, it doesn't have to be like the old school. We can leverage.
Even when we were in school, and obviously I'm telling my kids go to school and do well and stuff like that. I never got it. Why do I need you? You're dumb.
Well, as an entrepreneur, the way you think, it's a little bit different than a typical person who works 9 to 5.
That's the reason everybody succeeds in school. You got a cigarette break, you got a lunch break, just like the factory, and then you got another cigarette break, and then the hours are the same as working hours. Everything is the same.
The entrepreneur has innovative mind. They think differently, and that's an asset. That's not a burden. It's no coincidence that by your self-assessment you didn't do well in school. It's because the school hasn't provided a good platform for entrepreneurs to succeed. You were given information in incorrect format.
And I was giving incorrect information as well, which nobody bothered to stop and say, hey, I think this is wrong. It doesn't add up. Everybody just, okay, that's what the teacher said. Okay, that's what the teacher said. I remember in 9th grade, and we have a history lesson. And in Israel, most of the history lessons are history about Israel. Mm-hmm. Which is really one-sided. Really one-sided. The other add-ons you have to history are like American ideas, even not American history, because you don't teach anything about America. Nobody cares in Israel. Just American, like politics history.
Right.
And I'm sitting at school and I'm like, well, I heard something else from my Russian parents.
Right.
I heard some other things. Maybe you can be quiet. I'm like, I was just asking a question. Be quiet. I cannot ask a question, or I shouldn't be here. Having the immigrant privilege of walking out of school and nobody calls your parents because they're too busy surviving gave me the platform to ask questions and tell teachers to go fuck themselves. I'm not saying that's a good thing, really, but it helped me in the day and age that I grew up, in my state of mind where I grew up, because I was able to ask a question. I remember always hearing about the Vietnam War, for example, but I always heard the American side. Always, because the movies, Hollywood, you consume that kind of information, you always consume the American story.
Right.
When I went to Vietnam, we spent a month there, and I went to the war museums, and I saw what happened from their side of the story, which I believe way more than the American Hollywood version.
Hollywood, of course. Hollywood is just for...
I'm not a historian. I never went to the States and talked to veterans from the Vietnam War and to hear their side of the story. Because we only have Hollywood to blame for, and ideas, or the TV or the main media. And going to Vietnam and just talking to people there and asking how did it affect everything, and see how life looks like now. And going to that war museum, that's a whole different story. It's night and day. It's night and day. Hearing the white side of apartheid in South Africa from, again, movies and Hollywood, and obviously European influences which make them the good guys in the end, helping or bullshit like that, and going to the Apartheid Museum in Johannesburg in South Africa, it's a totally different story.
Absolutely.
And nobody teaches you that in school. Nobody teaches you that.
You have to ask yourself, what is the whole purpose of education? Is to teach people on how to live in a country and to program it with specific set of information that is needed for them to exist in that country. You can't tell people in Russia that Putin is bad, or how their lives would have been better if they were part of European Union.